So the first time I went to a party, it was a bit weird for me. I was in a different environment. There were a lot of lights and everybody seemed to be having fun. And I was always that kid with low self-esteem. And when I looked around, it looked like it was going great for everybody. So I was really interested in knowing how people felt. And I took to the booze and I had a couple of shots in. Vodka was my favorite, so I had a couple of shots in, and yeah, I started dancing. I was all over the place and I really enjoyed the feeling. I guess a lot of people take to drugs and alcohol because of the euphoric feeling, and I felt that, and that was the beginning of my party lifestyle. Hi, my name is Daniel and this is my story. I grew up in a Christian family and my dad is a pastor. My mom has always helped out and been actively involved in missionary work as well, and I happened to be the firstborn. When I completed my secondary school, I was given an opportunity to go and study medicine in Russia, and it was an exciting, rare opportunity for me. So being the firstborn, I had the responsibility to be an example to my sisters. When I went to Russia, I was pretty much excited. My primary focus was my spiritual life and my academic life. And for the first 3 years, everything was going great. I still managed to maintain between the two. And eventually, I let go of my spiritual life and my values, as well as what I was taught at home. So I got mixed up with the wrong crowd, and I started drinking. My drinking days were pretty much okay in the beginning because it was something that I did for fun. It was something that I did to relax. Eventually what happened is I was the guy that was drinking a little bit more than everybody else. So I began drinking on a Friday to a Saturday, and from Saturday I took it over to Sunday because I didn't have class. From Sunday I took it over to Monday because my classes were in the afternoon, and eventually became an everyday thing. So my drinking led to other things. I started taking drugs without anybody knowing. So I took to cocaine, I took to heroin, I took to codeine. Basically, I was doing anything to get high, and because of that, my schoolwork and my academic life began to suffer. So I started missing a couple of classes, and I wasn't doing so very well in school. I moved from passing with good grades to just clearing to moving to the next stage. So the school noticed, and they sat me down and gave me a couple of warnings, but I did not work on them, and eventually they had no option but to expel me. When I got expelled, I came back. It was really devastating for my parents. They were really broken. They were disappointed. We sat down and we spoke about it a couple of times, and they decided to give me another chance. So luckily I got accepted at another university, and I was given a chance to go back and further my studies. So when I went back to this different university, I sort of switched up on my lifestyle. I moved from the partying and the going out and the clubbing, and I just sort of isolated myself. And as long as I was drinking by myself, it was okay for me, because at that point I didn't realize that my addiction was progressing. And I continued drinking, I continued getting high, and of course this time I was having issues with my roommates. I was blacking out on the streets, I was getting arrested, and it became a big problem this time as well. So what had happened this time is my health was also affected. I began losing a lot of weight, always looking for something to get drunk. I was running in a lot of debt, and I had met some Russian friends that supported my habit because they too were into the drinking and the partying lifestyle. As usual, the school noticed. They gave me a couple of warnings, and I didn't work on them because I believed I didn't have a problem, and I was in denial despite everything that was happening around me. So eventually they also expelled me, and when I came back, this one was really, really tough, especially on my parents, and it was hard on me as well. The depression began to sink in after coming back, when I realized that most of my friends that I was with started making progress in life. People were getting jobs, people started buying cars, people started building houses, people were going on vacation, my friends were getting married, and I was in one lane with no direction at all. That was after 6 years spent in a foreign country, and I came back without any paper. And even the people that I had left back home were doing extremely well. Even people that were younger than me began to do extremely well. And because of that, it wasn't only my addiction and my alcoholism, but then my depression came in as well. Life became pretty hard for me. I started stealing things to feed my addiction, and I started arguing a lot with my parents. There were fights here and there. They did everything they could. They did pray for me. I went to China a couple of times. I got arrested a couple of times because of my addiction, and I actually moved out of the house and I was staying with friends. But then because I could not contribute to the alcoholism or the addiction that was going on within my team, I had to be moving from place to place. And sometimes I would steal from my friends. I would talk to former classmates and basically crook money out of them, as well as my churchmates. It continued for quite some time. So for years, I sank in addiction, alcoholism, and depression. As time went on, I think it got pretty too much for me, because now it was visible. I had no place to go to. Everybody knew that I became a fraud, and people knew that I actually did not graduate, and people knew that I had an alcohol and a drug problem. So because of that, things became extremely hard. I would go home once in a while, and there were moments where I would cry and look at my life and say, where am I going? But then the problem is I did not know how to stop addiction and alcoholism as well. And I was battling with depression. So having all these three things wear down on me and having nowhere to go was really, really hard. My family tried everything they could. They were very, very supportive, by the way. But still, it didn't work out for me. At this point, I was still in denial and I was depressed as well. So eventually, life took its toll on me. I moved from home and from friends, and I was basically sleeping on the streets. I was the guy that you would meet in town, you know, with good English and asking for a tukwacha. I was that type of a person. I moved to inferior environments and associating with inferior people as well, because that's what drugs and alcohol do to you. For me, it became a lifestyle. So all these things pressing down on me, eventually I had enough of life, and I thought about suicide a couple of times. But then there's this one time that really stuck out, because besides thinking of suicide, this time I actually had the courage to do it. So I remember after an overdose, I woke up in a drainage, and I was rescued by the cowboys who saw me, and then they picked me up from the drainage, and it was raining heavily, and then they put me aside. So what had happened was, when I woke up, I was too high, I was wet, I was shivering, I was hungry, I was weak, all these emotions running through me. And people would pass by, look at me and say, you know, this guy loves alcohol, because everybody blamed it on alcohol at that time. This guy loves alcohol because of the drinking is going to kill him and whatnot. And because everybody knew me, it was a normal thing. It wasn't the first time that I was blacking out. What happened is, at that moment, after I woke up and after everybody had left, there's a little girl that came to me and she said, you know what, sis, you look like you would love to die. Why didn't you go on the road and the car will run over you and it will kill you? And I thought that was a great idea. And as I was thinking about the act of actually committing suicide and waiting for the biggest car to pass through, that's the time that my mom was driving by and she showed up. I remember she had been looking for me for over 5 months, and then she rescued me at that point. She came over and she hugged me, and then she took me home. When I went home, I still battled with addiction and alcoholism for a year, and I was heavily sunk in with depression as well. So I still battled with these things for a year. During this period, my dad read a bit about addiction and read a bit about alcoholism as well, and my family also did a bit of reading about addiction and alcoholism, and they were very, very supportive. I wouldn't have done this without my family. As time went on, eventually, me and my dad decided, I think it was time for me to go to rehab. When I went to rehab, I remember telling God to say, look, this is it for me. You have to heal me or kill me, because I cannot continue living like this. And when I came back, I basically told God to say, look, you have to save me or else I'll die from this. And when I came back, I started making baby steps as far as my Christianity was concerned. I wasn't really freely open with going back to church, because I had hurt a lot of people, and I had embarrassed my family way too much. So eventually, I started reading a bit and going back through my spiritual roots. And I started growing as a baby in Christ, and things were going pretty well. Right now, this is my testimony. I'm back in school and I'm studying public health, and I help out a number of people with issues to do with alcoholism, addiction, and depression. And I really, really thank God for my life right now. My favorite saying is, I'm not where I'm supposed to be in life, but I thank God I'm no longer the person that I used to be. For anybody going through something that I went through, something similar, well, one thing I would like to say is it's a process, but you can make certain decisions to make it permanent. You don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to feel shy. Nobody was born with the intention of being an alcoholic. These things happen, but then the good thing is you can get out of it. There is help. Seek help, pray to God. There are a number of people that can help you out as well. So it's not over. As long as you're still breathing, as long as you still got life in you, it doesn't matter what you've done, it's not yet over. Life right now is really, really great. I'm back in school and I'm loving it. I have a stable relationship with my parents. I have a very good relationship with my sisters as well. I found new friends, people that have been through what I've been through as well, and they helped strengthen me. And besides that, I'm doing a number of things and I'm meeting new people as well. So I would say Christ gave me everything that alcohol and drugs promised me.